The boy's stomach was already as round as a ball, yet he insisted his adoptive mother serve him 3 more bowls. Then while they were busy getting the rice, he reached his hand under the table to perform a complex feat of twin gymnastics with his brother hidden below, successfully swapping places before the food arrived. The brothers went to such lengths because as orphans from the foster home, they knew this wealthy couple only intended to adopt a single child. While other children scrambled to impress them with some on the verge of success, the twin brothers remained perfectly calm. They only needed to leave a lasting impression at the very end. So the two climbed onto the roof. The younger brother used a fishing rod to snag the lady's hat as the couple was leaving, creating the illusion that it blew away, only for the older brother to coincidentally catch it. But that was only the first step. The two then rushed downstairs. As the couple prepared to drive off, the older brother cranked the faucet to full blast, aiming the hose at the car roof to trick them into thinking it was a sudden downpour. Then the moment the windshield wipers cleared the view, they were greeted by a hot, meltingly tender scene. In reality, the dog on the ground was just a stuffed toy. Thanks to this ruse, the brothers successfully secured their adoption as a single child. However, on their very first day in the house, a massive crate caught the adoptive father's eye. Just as he reached to open it, the boy stepped in, insisting that he be the one to handle the room's decoration. Naturally, the adoptive father didn't refuse. Once the crate was open, the brothers worked at lightning speed to decorate the room. Soon after, there was a knock at the door. It was time for dinner. Of course, the adoptive father noticed nothing amiss, as the younger brother was hiding right behind the door. During the meal, the mother asked if the clothes in the wardrobe fit him. Hitori mentioned they were a bit small, and asked if he could have 2 identical sets of the outfit he was wearing. The couple was puzzled at first, but agreed once they heard it was his habit. After finishing his meal, the older brother signaled to the younger one. Once his brother was under the table, he used the moment the couple was serving rice to perform a high-difficulty twin gymnastics maneuver with him. After dinner, the father asked Hitori for a shoulder massage. The younger brother didn't refuse, but his hands soon grew tired. Fortunately, the older brother was close by. The two began to coordinate in a seamless sequence of moves, leaving the father in absolute bliss. Time passed quickly, and late into the night, the brothers debriefed on the day's events, while mapping out the layout of the house. Next day, as the couple sat together, they felt that Hitori was still acting a bit too formal with them to create the childhood memories they never had. The mother hoped to bake a cherry pie with him, while the father wanted to give him a shoulder ride. Little did they know their entire conversation was being observed. To further their plan, the brothers decided to grant their parents' wishes. Hitori then found a cookbook featuring cherry pie and pointedly sat by the mother, showing her the recipe he wanted to try. The adoptive mother seized this opportunity to fulfill her long-held wish. However, the mother wasn't particularly skilled at weaving the patterns, so while she was away for a moment,
Go in that side, please, Well...
And just like that, the mother's dream was fulfilled. Now it was the father's turn. One day in the yard, the father saw the boy trying to place a birdhouse in a tree. Though he felt a bit bashful, he still spoke up about his intentions. However, the moment he stood up, he unexpectedly threw out his back, yet he refused to give up, promising instead that he would definitely lift it next time. That evening, the brothers looked up at the stuffed doll, a bear, and came up with a brilliant idea. Next day, as the father leaned forward, the older brother tossed the birdhouse to the younger one. He then wrapped the rope around himself. Then, at the moment the father stood up, the younger brother dropped down simultaneously.
I'm fine. Need oops. Wow, that's a lot of power.
318 of them.
I'm awake. I see. I don't know mushroom on top. I took a walk. Hey. I see how cute you have a bit of a belly. It looks unsightly.
Arigato.
To uncover the secrets hidden by their adoptive parents, the twins decided to investigate while the couple was away. They first entered the mother's bedroom, and in just a few moments, the younger brother discovered a strange object under the bed. It was a triangular cloth with 3 strings attached. While the older brother looked on in confusion, the younger one immediately realized how to use it. Next, the two of them headed to the father's room. Just then, a photo frame on the table caught the younger brother's eye. Looking closer, he discovered another photo, tucked behind the first one. While the man was clearly his adoptive father in his youth, the woman beside him looked nothing like his adoptive mother. Seeing this, the elder brother deduced she might have been the father's former lover. Later, the two entered a storage room, which was filled with piles of clothes and a stifling odd odor. It was suffocating, however, as the younger brother pulled back a curtain. He found the shelves lined with various strands of real human hair. This macabre sight sent shivers down his spine, considering how obsessed the adoptive mother had been with touching his hair lately. Suspecting a connection, the brothers were suddenly startled by the sound of a car outside. The couple had returned, and they appeared to be hauling some kind of large object. Driven by curiosity, the brothers used knotted bedsheets to slide down from the window. They then crept up to the storehouse to eavesdrop on the couple's conversation.
Come on, buddy. I didn't buy it. The brothers couldn't make sense of the cryptic exchange, so they decided to peek through the crack in the door.
To their absolute shock, they saw a circular machine rotating at high speed. Back in their room, the two began to piece a terrifying theory together. They realized the couple's true target all along was their hair. The welcome party was merely a front for a sinister public head shaving. Refusing to be victims, they vowed to make the couple pay a heavy price. The day of the party soon arrived. The parents had specially invited many friends and relatives for the occasion. There were also several other children around the same age. One of them, a boy named Eiji, was acting particularly strange. Even though the restroom was on the ground floor, he headed toward a room on the second floor instead. While everyone was chatting away, little did they know that someone was hiding right above the chandelier. Taking advantage of the mother's distraction, the younger brother slipped chili oil into her glass. The moment the wine hit her throat, the heat sent her into a swearing frenzy. Seeing this, the older brother rushed to hand her some water, but after drinking 2.5 cups, the burning sensation didn't fade. Instead, it only got worse. It turns out the glass wasn't filled with water, but with clear liquor. Soon after, the adoptive mother blindfolded the younger brother, while the older brother hid behind the curtain with a magnifying glass. Two planned to use the reflection of the sun on the couple, who were now covered in alcohol and oil, to trigger spontaneous human combustion as they bathed in the sunlight. But when the older brother saw what was in the adoptive father's hand, he quickly signaled his brother to abort the mission. Still blindfolded, the younger brother had no idea what was happening. Still lost in his fantasy of seeing the couple incinerated, unexpectedly the mother then told him to remove the blindfold. At first, he thought the plan had failed. The thought of a terrifying shaving machine filled him with dread. But the moment the blindfold came off, the dreamlike scene before him left him completely stunned.
Party historical. Most of the story you risk it. It was the older brother, after all, seeing him frozen. I gave him a little assist.
That evening, the older brother mended the younger one's clothes and applied an ice pack to his injuries. Two were deeply ashamed of their failure, while also discovering that the beauty in the photo album in their father's room was indeed their adoptive mother in her youth, and the hair on the shelves turned out to be all wigs. Soon after, the two biked to their mother's grave. As it turns out, when they were children, they had lived in this village with their mother for a time. Though they were too young to understand back then, they now know their mother's killer is somewhere in this village, and their infiltration as an adopted son is solely to find the real culprit. These twin brothers are truly formidable. When the older brother saw the younger one being bullied from outside, he sneaked in slowly, dragged his injured brother under the bed, then emerged from the other side demanding a rematch. Booktooth certainly wouldn't refuse. He thought victory was guaranteed with a single move. However, what he didn't expect was that his opponent was no longer the younger brother whose right hand was tied.
It's time to cook. It's time to cook 1, 2, 3. Delmer's mother had met a tragic end in this village, so they decided to investigate every house to find the killer.
Their plan was to take the initiative and make friends, which would give them a perfect excuse to enter people's homes. However, having grown up in an orphanage, they had no idea how to make friends, so the two decided to become attention seekers. While others would simply chuckle at a joke, the brother would put on an extremely exaggerated performance. Meanwhile, the younger brother tries to build rapport by giving gifts, but the others aren't interested at all, as they all know that Hitori is just an orphan from the welfare home. Just then, the duo nearby came up with a way to mess with him. If he can cross the tightrope without holding onto the safety line, they will agree to be his friend friends. Everyone gathered around waiting to watch him make a fool of himself, except for the boy with glasses who looked on with concern. Sure enough, before taking even 3 steps, the younger brother fell off the rope. But to everyone's astonishment, in just 2.5 seconds he suddenly respawned at the starting point and attempted to cross once more. After a series of repetitive failures and sudden reappearances, the crowd was left utterly bewildered. The sight reminded Akiyama of the time when he too was ridiculed by others for chasing his dreams. So he shouted out, cheering for Hitori not to give up. Though he managed to reach the end with a leap of faith, the duo still rejected him, claiming he had used his hands. At that moment, Akiyama offered to be his friend, and even invited him over to his house. Shortly after, the older brother arrived at Akiyama's house with dessert, while the younger brother slipped inside just as the door was closing. After a brief conversation, the brothers learned that there were only 2 people home and Akiyama's sister was asleep in her room. Armed with this info, the younger brother hurried to the 2nd floor. However, as he peered through the crack in the door, he noticed a carpet with the exact same pattern as the one from where they lived as children. If it still bears their childhood scribbles, then this room could lead them to more vital clues. But as luck would have it, the elder brother and Akiyama happened to walk by. The younger brother signaled him to the restroom, where they exchanged information. The elder brother decided to find a way to stall Akiyama, while the younger brother took the opportunity to slip into the daughter's room. The younger brother found no sign of the graffiti, but just as he was about to leave, the daughter suddenly grabbed him. Meanwhile, Akiyama repeatedly tried to head toward the daughter's room, but the elder brother skillfully deterred him with his earnest words. His performance convinced Akiyama that he was a man worthy of trust. Akiyama then opened up and even showed off his brain model. As for what was happening with the younger brother, he had inadvertently ended up as the daughter's human body pillow. The next day, the protagonist was invited to Bucktooth Maruyama's house. Strangely, despite clearly loathing him, Maruyama's invitation was highly uncharacteristic, putting the brothers on high alert. The younger brother took the lead to deal with Maruyama as expected. The moment they entered the room, Maruyama's true colors were revealed. He not only harassed the boy at every turn, but even went so far as to snatch his dessert. For the sake of the mission, the younger brother endured the humiliation. Then Maruyama demanded to play some orphanage games he'd heard about. But as the game began, Maruyama used being a beginner as an excuse to demand that the younger brother take it easy on him. Thus, when the elder brother returned from his investigation, he witnessed this scene. The elder brother refused to let his sibling be treated so poorly, so he pulled his brother under the bed to switch places and face Maruyama himself. It turned out that Maruyama was merely treating the younger brother like a toy. He also said that the next person to lose has to be the winner's underling. And that's how we got to the scene at the very beginning.
Dust is here. I'm a good boy. 僕らはいつも冷静でいなくちゃならないなんですか? Yeah, Mata boys go to the hey. Hey there, Mom, Adam. How many colors do you color? Do you much, you must say. Amite? Oh, Zona Kobun. Go, non desu ka. Bokura no ima, mo demo nai yo. A little star, you get a star. These twins were incredible. Yesterday, older brother disguised himself as the school beauty
to date his younger brother, but his goal wasn't just to prank him. It was actually to motivate the younger brother to study harder so that he could ace his midterm exams. This way, he might be promoted from the lower class to the honor class, bringing them closer to the prime suspect in their mother's murder. However, the older brother never expected the younger one to confess his feelings so soon. If he accepts now, the younger brother will be over the moon and lose all focus. But a sudden rejection would leave him devastated, sent spiraling to rock bottom.
Good. To the good eye. Think you go to the nice yaw.
I'll go to Go to test today. Yuck. 10. To that 2.5 days ago, a cleaning lady arrived at the protagonist's house.
Due to the nature of her work, she had cleaned almost every home in the village. Hearing this, the protagonist realized wasn't this the perfect chance to investigate the killer, but just as he was about to fish for information, the lady refused, citing the privacy of her other client's site. The protagonist was left completely speechless by this. To his frustration, his adoptive parents even took the other side, even using his striped underwear as an example. To illustrate the importance of privacy, this made the protagonist's face instantly turn red, steaming like a boiling kettle. Back in their room, he vented his frustrations to his brother, while mocking their mother's tone as he complained. Saying this, his brother laughed so hard his abs hurt, and at the same time, he came up with a clever plan. While the two of them were hanging out the quilts to dry, the older brother used a distress signal to lure the mother away. Then, the younger brother mimicked her voice to fish for information, successfully identifying the family with the algae pattern. Rook! It was the boy named E.G. they had met at the party. It just so happened they were attending the same school.
So I'm heading to the Ikiju residence.
Soon the day of enrollment arrived, and the two prepared to put their next plan into motion. First, they needed to get close to Ichi, but unfortunately, he was placed in the honors class, while the underachiever protagonist and Akiyama were assigned to the inferior class. In this school, there's an unwritten rule. Struggling students are looked down upon by the honors elite. Therefore, the only way to get close to Ichi was to ace the exams. Just then, Ichi's voice came from outside the restroom. The protagonist tried to talk to him, but Ichi, conscious of the crowd and the inferior class badge on the protagonist's uniform, ignored him. "I don't even know you." To ensure the plan would move forward, the two brothers decided to study together. However, the younger brother was acting a bit unusual that day, all because he had encountered the goddess he fell for at first sight. Seeing his brother hopelessly infatuated, the older brother decided to play along. Disguising himself as the goddess, he took the initiative to approach his brother, claiming to be allergic to idiots and telling him to come back only after he got smarter. That explains the scene from the beginning. From then on, the younger brother became a new man, doing nothing but studying day and night, until the day of the midterm exams finally arrived. The younger brother looked as if he'd been completely drained by his studies. When the results came out, the older brother was quite satisfied with his own performance. Now, all that remained was to see his brother's grades. To his surprise, his brother had actually scored perfect marks in both subjects. To reward him, the older brother decided to go on a date with him. The two went to the aquarium, seeing the gift in his brother's hands. The older brother realized he couldn't keep up the charade any longer, otherwise his brother might completely break down upon learning the truth. So he lied and said he was moving to a faraway place. On the surface, the younger brother acted indifferent, but once back home, the tears began to flow uncontrollably.
All right.
Yeah. The next day, the rankings were posted. Ichi, without a doubt, took first place in the honors class. However, when he checked the scores of the regular class, he discovered the protagonist's score was exactly the same as his. During PE, while everyone else was training on the field, Ichi alone stayed in the classroom investigating something.
Is there anything Sekiguchi Kenzo? It's on us. Sonoyama calligraphy to the twin brothers. Something terrifying happened during dinner at a classmate's house.
The hostess suddenly accused him of committing a crime. She had her son bring out a garment from 8 years ago. One of the buttons in the middle of it was missing. That very button happened to be the one Ichi found in the classroom a few days ago. However, this button was the only piece of evidence left at the scene of the twins' mother's murder. Seeing this, the younger brother instinctively touched his neck, only for Ichi to command him to raise his hands. His adoptive mother believed her son would never steal, but Ichi demanded he strip to prove his innocence. That moment, the older brother hiding nearby gave a slight nod. The younger brother immediately launched into a theatrical performance, while the older brother took the opportunity to crawl under the dining table. Then, while the younger brother held everyone's attention, he snatched a knife from the table and reached up behind his brother's back, attempting to cut the rope.
Money.
Relieved, the younger brother showed his bare back to everyone. He even suggested they could look inside his pants if they really wanted to. To his surprise, Ichi actually pulled his pants down the very next second. But just when the older brother thought the ordeal was finally over, Ichi suddenly blew a sharp whistle with his fingers. Immediately, a Doberman pinscher appeared before the group. Ichi held out the garment from earlier and ordered the dog to track down the matching scent. Under the table, the older brother was still frantically thinking of a plan. Just as he was about to move, the Doberman came face to face with him. Everyone's attention shifted toward the space beneath the table, which meant the twins' secret was on the verge of being exposed. In the nick of time, the younger brother immediately confessed to the theft and signaled his brother to pass him the button, while making up a flimsy excuse that no one would buy. Seeing this, the adoptive parents hurriedly pleaded on his behalf. However, the hostess stated that if the orphanage found out, they might never be allowed to see their son again. She suggested that, until his mental state returned to normal, the family would take responsibility for looking after him. Early the next morning, Ichi entered the room where the younger brother was held, carrying a bowl of dog food. He wanted to know what he was hiding, but the younger brother refused to confess. He claimed he had simply found the item, but such a blatant lie only convinced Ichi that the boy's mind was truly warped. It seemed he needed to be re-educated from scratch. Meanwhile, on the other side, the older brother hiding in the cabinet wanted to rescue him, but the Doberman guarding the door appeared to be exceptionally well trained. He used a rope to engage in a tug-of-war, and when the tension reached its limit, he suddenly let go. But the plan still failed. Fortunately, the dog didn't want to bite him, it just wanted to play. In this way, the older brother successfully reached the locked room, but the younger brother refused to be rescued, since the hostess was unaware of their dual identity. This gave the older brother more freedom to act alone. However, the real reason was that he didn't want his brother to see him dressed in such a ridiculous outfit. Relieved to find his brother wasn't being mistreated, the older brother backed off for now. But even after searching the entire house, he couldn't find the algae patterned wallpaper. The younger brother recalled a childhood memory of the three of them listening to music under the bed. Perhaps that was actually the sound of a piano from the room next door. Hearing this, a thought struck the older brother, and he reached for the floor plan. In an instant, he deduced that there might be a hidden room. He then told his brother to check the wallpaper in the room where he was. Sure enough, there were doodles they had drawn as children, and at the very end, there was even a note left by their mother. This moved the younger brother to tears. Outside, the older brother was left bewildered, as the crying was just enough to lure the mistress of the house over.
Milk and juice again. Me.
And just like that, another 2.5 days passed. The older brother kept eavesdropping on the Iji family, but strangely, they didn't say a single word about the younger brother's confinement. If that button was a dying message from their mother, it seemed highly unlikely for a 5-year-old to commit murder. So he decided to start the investigation in Iji's father's study. But right at that moment,
I did that to your right, not the left.
Don't only I use it, turn it. It turned out to be the cleaning lady. Never mind the brother, even I was startled. It turns out she comes to Iji's house every Wednesday to clean, and the brother could take advantage of her to enter the locked rooms. In no time, the brother discovered a suspicious photo album. However, as he was examining it through a magnifying glass, he spotted their mother's reflection in a wine glass. So he asked the cleaning lady to take a look. Judging by the clothes, she was likely the nanny back then. Oh, the Iji family supposedly never hired anyone under 50. The two were on the same page and headed to other rooms to continue their search for clues.
He's thin enough to fit. Oh, so he has to be the one to go? Just then, a painting on the wall caught their eye.
Usually a frame like this would easily collect dust up, but this one was spotless. The older brother tried to rotate the frame, and a secret passage was revealed behind it. However, when the two went up, they were greeted by a diorama of the entire village, with dolls representing the residents in every single house. Even the cleaning lady from the next village was included. Strangely, for some reason, her doll was placed inside Iji's house. The older brother discovered detailed files on all the villagers. In other words, Iji's family has the entire village under surveillance. The sight of it made their skin crawl. Suddenly, footsteps were heard coming from downstairs. The lady quickly told the older brother to hide in a box, warning him not to come out until the footsteps faded, leaving the rest for her to handle. In the blink of an eye, night fell. The older brother carefully climbed out of the box, but then just how incredible is their perfect coordination. The older brother hides under the table to tickle the younger one, but his goal isn't just to tease him. He's helping his brother mimic the laughter of a 5-year-old. It turns out the lady of the house has a twisted fetish. She treats the brother like a baby, and if he misbehaves, she forces him to nurse. So the younger brother plays along, acting as the perfect infantin, even though he could sense his brother snorting with laughter outside. He stayed in character until the very end, and all of this was to find the person who killed their mother. After this incident, the mistress finally accepted him as a member of the family, allowed him to join everyone for dinner, except that his age was now set to 5 years old. At this moment, the younger brother was like a child with endless questions. He asked why the spoons were round. The mother replied that they looked better that way. The younger brother then asked why, if they were all one family, his hair color was the only one that was different. The mother was speechless, but Iji claimed it would change in 2.5 years. This was an obvious lie, yet the brother under the table didn't sense any physical cues from him. Then the younger brother asked Iji why, as the eldest, he wasn't called Ai, although Iji claimed to be proud of his name. His feet suddenly twitched. This indicated that, deep down, he actually wanted to be Ai. Finally, the younger brother asked Iji if he ever wet the bed. The others at the table all said no, but strangely, the feet of all three began to shake violently. At that moment, Iji noticed the younger brother's smile was a bit forced. It certainly wasn't the kind of smile a 5-year-old should have. Just as the younger brother began to struggle, the older brother provided a perfect assist from under the table. In the evening, the mistress told the younger brother that the correctional sessions were over and his adoptive parents would pick him up tomorrow. However, the brothers felt it was a pity, as they had only just found a way to extract information. So they decided to reorganize the intelligence they had gathered. First, their mother had once been a nanny for this family. Second, the Ikijo family was monitoring the entire village. Third, the mistress's correctional sessions only took place when the master was away. Finally, there's the fact that Iji occasionally wets the bed. While they've gathered plenty of intel to unmask the killer, they still lack conclusive evidence. Just then, Miki looked over at Dali, who appeared to be playing with a spirit board. He suddenly had a brilliant idea. They would pose as their mother's vengeful spirit, specifically to observe the suspect's reactions and smoke out their mother's murderer. They first headed to Iji's father's study, but to their surprise, he was so overcome with emotion that he pulled her into a tight tight embrace. He wept, confessing how much he had missed her all these years. The brothers were completely caught off guard by this reaction. Taking advantage of the moment, Mr. Ichijo noticed something odd about Dolly's head. Migi quickly retracted the rope and signaled Dolly to make a run for it. Although Mr. Ichijo's behavior was unexpected, it actually served to prove his innocence. After all, if the real killer saw Dolly, would have been trembling with fear at the sight of a ghost.
You have a nice gift for me, don't you? I've already done that before.
Already? It's so lonely.
Of course, now is not the time for that, since Eiji's father is innocent by process of elimination. The killer is likely Eiji's mother. Next, the brothers snuck into the bedroom. While Mrs. Ichijo was asleep, Dolly tried to wake her using a long-haired wig. The moment she opened her eyes, she was met with a bone-chilling sight. Mrs. Ichijo was terrified, but the feeling was fleeting, because she mistook the ghost for a mistress. Seeing Mrs. Ichijo bolt from the room, the brothers thought they had caught the killer, but little did they know. Mrs. Ichijo didn't hold back and came back with a pair of scissors. The two immediately dove under the sofa, seeing the mistress's fencing stance. Migi suddenly realized that she was innocent as well. After all, scissors would be useless against the ghost. Just then, the mistress noticed movement beneath the sofa. Just as she was about to strike, fortunately, the master intervened just in time. Unfortunately, the glint from the scissors exposed the brothers' escape route. The brothers managed to escape only to run into Eiji a moment later. They thought they were caught, but the moment Eiji saw Dolly, he was so terrified that he actually wet his pants. Then, screaming that he had seen a ghost, he bolted away in sheer horror. From Eiji's reaction, the brothers deduced that he was their mother's killer. The next day, to celebrate Hitori's return, the adoptive parents threw a welcome party and invited his friend Akiyama. However, Dolly couldn't find any sign of Migi under the table. It turned out Migi had exhausted himself while investigating Eiji's house these past few days. During that time, if the dog hadn't taken pity on him, shared its food, Migi would have fainted from hunger long ago. Though Dolly feigned a cold and retreated to the room when Migi finally woke up, he found himself resting his head on his adoptive mother's lap. While his adoptive father served him a freshly baked cherry pie, Migi couldn't help but shed tears of joy, while Akiyama wept even more hysterically. Meanwhile, Eiji's mental state was rapidly deteriorating.
Okasan no doridori ga endo toranai. Oh, my skin nagia. The younger twin could never have imagined his brother had unexpectedly cross-dressed once again. But this time, the goal wasn't to motivate him to study hard. It was to uncover the motive behind Eiji murdering their mother. To do this, the brother even risked sneaking into Eiji's house in person, prepared to use the knowledge he gained from 2.5 weeks of intense study to perform regressive hypnosis on Eiji. However, much to his bewilderment, Eiji turned out to be a total straight arrow. While the brother lay there, unable to sleep under Eiji's gaze, Eiji suddenly pulled out a long-treasured figurine, leaving the brother no choice but to play his trump card early.
This light.
Brother? Wait. What is this? You've gone mad. You're up to no good. Having just discovered that their mother's killer was Eiji, the twins began plotting to uncover his motive for the crime.
The younger brother wanted to kidnap and torture him for a confession, but the older brother insisted on handling the matter himself. At lunch the next day, the boys were discussing their type in girls. Though Eiji was uninterested, the mere mention of blondes triggered a sudden wave of nausea within him. Not wanting to show any weakness in front of his peers, he made an excuse to slip away to the restroom. After all, he had a perfect student persona to maintain. However, to his absolute shock, his cross-dressing brother was perched above the stall, staring down at him. Eiji was utterly bewildered by the sight. On one hand, he didn't recognize this girl from school. On the other, he feared she might expose his embarrassing lapse. He prepared to catch up and demand an explanation. However, the chase took a chaotic turn, as he nearly yanked off the older brother's wig. Then Eiji pulled a stack of cash from his pocket. He tried to bribe the other with hush money to keep his secrecy, only to have it slapped away and ruthlessly rejected by the older brother. He was looking for something more humiliating to Eiji, namely, his childhood photos. The older brother quickly spotted an anomaly in the pictures. On Christmas Eve, Eiji's buttons were all there,
But by Christmas Day, the middle button had vanished, making him even more certain IG was the killer. But when asked why the button went missing, AG claimed he didn't remember what happened that day. The older brother was forced to let it go for now, stating you would come back to hear about EG's childhood another time. However, unbeknownst to the older brother, the dolphin charm that had accidentally fallen off during the chase happened to be discovered by the younger brother. That night, the younger brother told his brother about the find, joyfully declaring that his goddess had returned. The older brother was stunned and told him to forget the goddess, but the younger brother refused to give up. Instead, he put up missing person posters on the school walls the next day. The older brother soon saw them, but given the crude sketches, he wasn't worried at all about being caught by his brother. However, he underestimated his brother's god-tier teammate. Since Akiyama was once obsessed with bird fossils, he had the skill to reconstruct full models from partial images, though the younger brother's imagination was beyond mortal comprehension. By comparing his past sketches with real people to find a pattern, he could filter out the nonsense and reconstruct the true image. The sketch reveals his actual appearance. The younger brother was amazed, and nearby female students gathered around to see. They immediately recognized her as the girl IG had been looking for. Stunned by this, the younger brother quickly followed the lead to find her. Seeing the two of them talking, he didn't hesitate for a second. He tried to pull his goddess away, but IG refused to back down. Neither of them would yield to the other.
Keep you on Moscow. That's one way to put it.
Oh my god, as you can see, alright.
So the older brother took this chance to enter AG's home. This leads us to the scene from the very beginning. As for why EG refused to get into bed, it was because he felt they needed a lover's pact before sleeping together, specifically a kiss. But being too shy, he said it in French. The older brother didn't understand a word of that gibberish. To extract information, he readily agreed. It wasn't until EG's lips drew closer to his that he realized the true meaning of that word. However, just as he began to have second thoughts,
My blood.
Asha can't keep up with me. You might take me here then. The brother successfully hypnotized EG and asked about the events of Christmas Eve. However, just as he was about to get to the key information, a sudden noise came from outside the window. Looking closely, it turned out the younger brother had rushed over. After learning their son was heartbroken, the adoptive parents decided to drink with him to forget it all and leave everything behind. While the mother was drunk, the adoptive father encouraged the younger brother not to lose heart. So he followed his feelings and climbed up to the second floor. However, what the older brother didn't expect was this. The boy suddenly woke up and pushed him down without hesitation. Fortunately, his brother caught him just in time. Saying that he was still worried about the fallen jewelry, the brother couldn't help but snap. Idiot. The tone of those words suddenly triggered a memory for the younger brother. He lunged forward, bit him hard, and then ran off without looking back. The boy was left dazed as he recalled that night. The night of that Christmas, he had heard a noise outside and thought it was Santa Claus, but he never expected a blonde woman to appear instead. Perhaps driven by pure terror, the boy pushed the woman outside the window directly, along with one of his own buttons. By the time he snapped out of it, she was already lying in a pool of blood. Rushed to find his mother, but she found nothing at the scene and told him he might have just seen a monster. Having finally uncovered the truth, the older brother raced home.
Holy shit. You've got to be kidding me. How many years has it been?
Oh my god, you're such a nice guy. The older twin never imagined things would turn out like this. Once it was revealed he'd been cross-dressing to date his own brother, the younger brother cut ties completely and ran away from home, hiding out at a friend's house. Even when his brother eventually found him, tried to invoke the oath they swore at their mother's grave, the younger brother had no intention of forgiving him. He even claimed revenge didn't matter anymore, all because of one thing.
Polka, brother, take this.
Just moments ago, upon learning his long-time crush was actually his own brother, the younger twin finally reached his breaking point. He decided to crash at a friend's place for the time being. Seeing how pathetic he had been looking over the past 2.5 days, Akiyama assumed that Miji was being abused by his adoptive mother. Just as he was wondering how to save him, his sister suddenly burst in, announcing that a friend had come to visit. Akiyama was utterly bewildered when he opened the door, because he couldn't understand how the person who was supposed to be inside was suddenly standing right there outside.
Wait a second, I'll just mumbling nonsense. After cleverly getting rid of Akiyama, the older brother quickly located his twin, but the younger one refused to come out.
Akiyama then returned to the room and asked Miji to help him study, hoping to change the mood. The older brother agreed. He was growing impatient. After all, his priority was convincing his brother to return. Suddenly, a noise came from the closet as Akiyama went to check it. The older brother unexpectedly swung around and delivered a sharp slap.
It's just a mosquito. Take that. That?
No.
Come on, please.
Hearing this, Akiyama wasn't angry, instead he marveled at how Miki truly lived up to his reputation as the top student. The brother replied that it was all because of a vow he made to their mother, while the younger brother knew exactly what he was implying. Akiyama assumed he was referring to the adoptive mother, believing she had shackled Miki with the burden of academic excellence. So Akiyama tried to comfort him, saying there was no need to kill himself playing the perfect child just to meet her expectations. The most important thing he said is to set your true self free. Those words sparked a sudden realization in the younger brother's mind, while Akiyama knocked on the door to complain about the noise. The younger brother quickly shoved his brother into the closet. Then, he decided to give his brother an answer to his earlier words. To him, revenge was no longer the priority. He refused to be anyone's puppet ever again. Hearing this, Akiyama thought Hitori had finally moved on from his past. She then suggested they go out together to clear his head. This brings us back to the scene from the very beginning. The older brother stood before his mother's grave and swore that even if he was alone, he would see the revenge plan through to the end. Unexpectedly, his adoptive mother soon began noticing several abnormalities. For instance, their son usually had an appetite for 2.5 bowls of rice, but he could barely finish half of that. To keep up the charade, the older brother forced himself to gorge on the food, only to rush to the bathroom later to vomit it all up. However, even if he could fake his appetite, their flawless double act during chores was now impossible to replicate alone. Even while giving his adoptive father a massage, the older brother struggled to maintain his usual composure. The adoptive father also seemed to sense that something was wrong. On the surface, he simply wanted to share a bath with his son, but he was actually using a toy duck to teach him a life lesson. By blocking one hole, the water pressure from the other becomes much stronger. Though only half understanding the metaphor, he decided to put aside his feelings for his brother. Before long, a prime opportunity for revenge presented itself. The village was about to host its annual Halloween costume contest. The older brother learned from his adoptive mother that EG won the title almost every year. If he could just sabotage the champion's pedestal, he could kill his target right then and there in front of everyone. With that in mind, even wearing this ridiculous cosplay outfit doesn't feel quite as humiliating anymore. Meanwhile, to ensure he wouldn't accidentally win the contest, he filled the costume's mouthparts with ketchup beforehand and sprayed it all over the audience.
However, to the older brother's absolute surprise, IG actually showed up this year, dressed as a complete papa.
Clearly, after everything that happened, he had no heart for the competition. Left with no choice, the brother exploited the power of rumors, spreading a fake tragic backstory about EG through the crowd. He successfully elevated the beggar persona into that of a wandering bard, guaranteeing IG a landslide victory in the polls. By then, the older brother had climbed up to his vantage point, ready to witness EG's spectacular demise with his own eyes. But at that very moment, just wait for it, the brother saw the scene and was completely dumbstruck. A championship had gone to the runner-up, the Asuka duo, who turned out to be Akiyama and the younger brother. The adoptive parents were blown away by the performance, while the older brother scrambled down from the tree and rushed toward the stage, but he was a second too late. He thought he had just caused his own brother's death, but when he looked up, he realized the one who got hit wasn't his brother, but IG. The twins never expected that after the truth of their mother's murder came out, the woman before them would try so desperately to kill them. To protect the brothers, the cleaning lady had ultimately paid with her life. And just now, the older brother sought vengeance for their mother. Yet he nearly cost his brother his life. As a result, he fell severely ill and became bedridden. The younger brother, wanting to understand why EG risked his life to save him, actually disguised himself as his own crush and went to EG's house alone. After getting his mother out of the way, EG confessed that his reason for saving him was to seek redemption. He led the protagonist into a hidden room where they found the village diorama the older brother had mentioned. On Christmas, when he was 5, EG pushed a woman by the window to her death. Although his mother told him she was just a non-existent monster, he later found a doll of that woman in his sister's room. Thus, he believed his mother monitored the whole village to prevent anyone from seeking revenge and taking his life.
Is this a zombie movie?
Shirahama no yama ni tsuite iru no. The protagonist stared at the dismembered doll in horror, while IG hoped he would inform the others as soon as possible. The protagonist was confused. Why tell him of all people? Cut it out. Turns out IG had seen through the disguise long ago. After all, the eyes never lie. However, at that moment, IG's mother suddenly appeared behind them, brandishing a long, thick loaf of toasted bread. Sensing danger, IG rushed forward to stop her, urging the protagonist to flee at once. But the moment he jumped down from the upper floor, she unexpectedly grabbed hold of his wig. No longer caring for the disguise, the protagonist ditched the wig and bolted. He then hid in IG's sister's room, thinking he was safe for the moment, only to hear a knock at the door a second later. Despite mimicking his sister's voice, the mother still demanded the door be opened. In the scuffle, he bit into the bread, but the sister seized the chance to break free. However, he never imagined that she wouldn't expose him but would instead help him escape, and the reason was absolutely mind-blowing.
Tap, tap, tap. I've been doing this since my senior year of high school. The sister walked over and showed him her real family.
Meanwhile, the woman was furious that he had escaped, so she decided to head straight for his house. She questioned the elderly couple about him, and upon learning he was ill and bedridden, the unsuspecting couple soon lost consciousness. It turned out she had spiked the tea he was still reeling from the overwhelming information his sister had just revealed. But more importantly, he had to get home immediately to warn his brother. However, the moment the younger brother stepped inside, he found his adoptive parents asleep, which felt incredibly strange. After all, it was the middle of the day. The younger brother cautiously opened the door, only to find his brother tied to the bed. He rushed to pull off the hood, unaware that the woman had been lying in wait for him. She bound the two brothers, and once their true identities were confirmed, she decided to send them to reunite with their mother. But the brother argued that if both of them met with an accident at once, there would be no way to cover up the truth. Far from hesitating, the woman simply felt that killing just one of them would suffice. After all, they had always lived as a single person. Hearing this, the younger brother was about to snap, but his brother suddenly cut him off. He listed all of his brother's flaws before finally asking his brother to kill him, for without his brother he couldn't go on living. But the younger brother could forget about him and the revenge. With that, the woman tightened a ribbon around his neck. The older brother's vision began to blur in that moment. His life flashed before his eyes. He saw himself as a child, hiding under the bed with his brother and mother. But the next second, he could breathe again. The person standing at the door was the cleaning lady who had been missing for days. The woman was also completely bewildered by this. It turns out Hikari was nearly buried alive in the backyard. Luckily, Iji's sister dug him out later. He even met the sister's biological parents and learned that the woman was actually infertile. At that moment, the woman went into a full-on fighting stance. The two instantly engaged in a fierce duel. With a stripped-down version of the invincible Hot Wheels move, the cleaning lady succeeded in pinning the woman down. Seizing the opportunity, she ushered the two brothers out. Sorento Ashiko, he is gone. The brothers were left completely stunned. They fled the village on a bicycle. The older brother decided never to return. With that, he even threw the bike into the river. However, the younger brother felt the exact opposite. He wanted to go back to their adoptive parents, and the two began to fight over it. But upon learning that his brother's deepest wish was for everyone to sit together and eat cherry pie once more, the older brother's heart softened. Together, the two began riding back toward the village.
Story go!
How incredible is it when coordination is mastered to the extreme? To expose the Ikijo family's murderous plot, the twins decide to team up with their friends to face the enemy. Their first mission is to recruit the Ikijo daughter to their side. To this end, Bucktooth pulls off an insane stunt, placing his hat over the street lamp to flash Morse code to the room across the way. After she agrees to help, they quickly divide the task. Akiyama acts as the decoy to lure the police away. Meanwhile, the others take the opportunity to sneak into the house. However, much to their surprise, the ground is completely rigged with barbed wire. Younger brother uses his iron head to boost Bucktooth up to the room, but the older brother isn't so lucky. At the last second, the younger brother leaps out the window with a rope, and the two perform their weight-offsetting trick once again. Just moments ago, the cleaning lady was brutally murdered while trying to save the brothers, and our protagonist has been inexplicably framed for the crime. Even knowing that Mrs. Ichijo is the real killer, the two of them alone are powerless to stop her. The younger brother seeks help from his friends, but before he can even explain, Akiyama greets him with a massive hug. Upon learning the truth, Akiyama joins the cause without hesitation. To take on that mad woman, however, they clearly need a powerful weapon. The next moment, he comes up with a brilliant plan. While Akiyama is out, the younger brother urges the older to reveal his identity too. After all, they can't solve this problem on their own. The elder brother agreed, but just as he was about to emerge, Akiyama walked into the room with Bucktooth.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, it's a good story. After talking things over, Bucktooth learned the whole truth. Though the younger brother didn't fully trust him, knowing he had the essential equipment to record evidence, he had no choice but to cooperate for now. The younger brother then suggested recruiting the Ikijo daughter, which Bucktooth approved of simply because he thought she was cute. He prepared to send her a letter via drone, but just then, a tanuki happened to cross their path, startling Bucktooth so much that he tumbled down, smashing the drone. The younger brother was about to complain about his unreliability, only to find Bucktooth had somehow scaled a street lamp. He thought Bucktooth had lost it until he noticed the flickering lights, revealing that the two were actually communicating via Morse code. Back in the room, they began sharing the intel. The daughter's room was locked, but she would help if they could enter through the window. She was willing to assist them. After seeing Bucktooth's skills, the younger brother's attitude finally softened. They then headed to Bucktooth's secret base to strategize. The main hurdle was how to reach that window, especially the group of police officers standing guard outside. They needed at least one person to act as bait, a cameraman, and someone to intimidate the Ichijo mother. Akiyama felt they were one person short, but little did they know the elder brother had been sitting right there with them all along. Booktooth was utterly confused by the sight and nearly cried out for his mommy in terror. Fortunately, the younger twin stopped him just in time. Meanwhile, things were looking much worse for Akiyama. After learning the truth about the twin brothers, Akiyama and Bucktooth couldn't help but be moved to tears. The four of them then decided to put their next plan into action. As the bait, Akiyama was the first to take the brunt of the risk. Then, Bucktooth threw the rope into the room for the sister to secure, and so the scene from the beginning unfolded. And the sister revealed everything she knew. Turned out she was only the Ichijo family's adopted daughter. Because Mrs. Ichijo demanded perfection in everything, the girl felt that the entire family was built on hypocrisy. Thus, she hoped the twins and their friends would tear this family apart. Bucktooth promised they would, and the sister's face flushed red. As the two were about to lock lips again, the twins covered their eyes. While discussing the next move, the sister told them to leave the distraction to her. Taking a deep breath, she clutched her stomach and began to shriek. Taking advantage of the moment, Mr. Ichijo opened the door. The trio slipped out. Hearing that the baby was to be re-educated, they rushed to the nursery, only to witness a truly outrageous scene. They prepared to take the baby to the second floor as a hostage, to force Mrs. Ichijo to confess the truth. Bucktooth couldn't understand why it had to be on the second floor. The younger twin explained that if they showed the slightest weakness, that woman would take them out in an instant. The positioning was key. Otherwise, they'd be crushed by her overwhelming presence. So Bucktooth had to stay on the first floor to create a distraction. Then they hide under the sofa to record everything. However, as they were moving, the baby mishaps began to occur one after another. Since the baby was on the verge of tears, the brothers had to take turns, even making silly faces to calm it down. As for Bucktooth, he was all set to film, but a dog suddenly appeared and gave him a real fright. Hearing the noise, Mother Ichigo rushed out of her room, while the brothers were still quite a distance from the second floor. Luckily, she headed straight for the nursery, giving the brothers a chance to slip upstairs. But in the next second, Bucktooth bolted toward the second floor, leaving the brothers completely bewildered. At that exact moment, Mother Ichigo came rushing back. Suddenly, a baby's cry rang out, and Mother Ichigo followed the sound, only to discover it was coming from a camera. Then, Bucktooth used a rope to hoist it back up. As he prepared to play his part, the twins began to threaten Mother Ichigo, demanding she reveal the entire truth. To help you.
Meteor, in a cold morning, you were, I noticed that, what is it, metal? Always right.
I can't know. She is the most deranged woman I've ever seen, all because she was told she was infertile. She actually pushed the family's nanny onto her own husband. Since the two women had similar builds and the bedroom was dimly lit, the two of them were soon lost in each other's embrace. Meanwhile, Reiko hid behind the door watching in secret. Though Metley felt that none of this was normal, Reiko didn't care at all. After all, she is a woman who strives for perfection in everything. As long as the nanny gives birth to her child, her family will finally be complete. If you play with fire, you're bound to get burned. After several close encounters, Reiko's husband eventually noticed something was off. One night, he grabbed the nanny and held her tight. He then confronted her with his suspicions, though Mitri flatly denied them, and tried to break free. The master of the house refused to let go.
I must stay by your side. Come get the book.
Come pick it up. It turns out Metri had always admired Reiko. Even though she lived in the Ichijo household as a nanny, she wasn't actually good at chores even when using the vacuum. She would accidentally get her hair sucked into it every time Reiko would patiently teach her how to handle the housework. Because of this, Metri aspired to be a woman as perfect as Reiko. Since that certain incident occurred, Reiko's personality underwent a complete 180-degree change. She blamed Metri for everything that went wrong and locked her away in a room. Soon after, the demon gave birth to two golden-haired beasts, while Reiko herself became pregnant with a baby who looked like her husband. This was the truth according to Reiko. However, the older brother immediately spotted a flaw in her story. Specifically, the doctors had said Reiko was biologically incapable of conceiving. Reiko dismissed it as nothing more than Matri's curse. With that, she crawled to the second floor in a bizarre, unsettling manner, and even knocked the camera out of Bucktooth's hand. Seeing this, the twins quickly took IG hostage. Instead of showing fear, Reiko was unfazed, and even performed a move to catch the blade with her bare hands. But just as she was about to take Iji back, a flash of memory suddenly crossed Iji's mind. He recalled Metri's words and unexpectedly reached out his hand. He pushed Leonci down from the second floor.
Wait, what am I seeing?
It turns out that Metli actually gave birth to triplets, and when Leonci saw them, she threw aside the quilt she used to fake her pregnancy and took the black-haired baby as her own child. As for the remaining 3, they continued to be locked away in the room, with Leonci delivering food to them every day. As the twin brothers grew up, they used fish bones to pick the lock. Then the 3 of them fled to live near the cliff until the day Christmas arrived. Metli hoped that the 3 brothers could be reunited, so she quietly climbed up to the 2nd floor of Leonci's house, only to be pushed down by her own biological child dying in the fall. Aiji claimed that they were 3 brothers, but the twins didn't believe it at all after all their hair colors were different. Besides, the older brother couldn't forgive him for killing their mother. After realizing what he had done, Aiji fell into a trance and helped the injured Leonci back to her room. As he walked, he muttered that he wanted to end it all. At that moment, the master of the house stepped out clearly. The sister had exhausted herself, trying to hold him back. Just as he was about to inform the twins' adoptive parents, Booktooth stopped him just in time, saying the situation was too deep for his father-in-law to handle on his own. The master of the house was completely bewildered. After all, he hadn't heard anything about his sister having a boyfriend. However, at that very moment, Leonci's scream echoed through the house. They rushed toward the sound, only to find Leonci lying in the room covered in blood. Everyone else was frozen in shock, while the sister reached out intending to poke Leonci's eyes. She wanted to confirm one thing. Sure enough, Reiko suddenly sprang back to life in the next second. She bolted out of the room and locked the door behind her. She planned to take Aiji to a place where no one knew them and start over. Next time, she was determined to live an even more perfect life. After packing her bags, Reiko walked out of the room, only to be met by Eiji's ruthless blade. For a family this twisted, perhaps destroying everything is the best outcome. And she hurled the suitcase down to the 1st floor, which had already been drenched in gasoline. The latest explosive episode of Miji Dali is here. Akiyama transforms from a big bird into a fire phoenix, providing a god-tier assist. After Eiji stabbed his adopted mother to death, he sought his own end, but was rescued by the twins. To help the 3 brothers escape, the cleaning lady Hikari truly became the light itself. Just moments ago, Eiji tried to use the flames to bring an end to this insane family. He showed no mercy even to the 5 people locked in another room. Meanwhile, Maruta is using his buck-toothed advantage to gnaw through the door. As for the master of the house, he remains in a total daze after all in his mind. The Ichijo family was supposed to be perfect, little realizing that it was his constant neglect and lack of communication that fueled Mother Ichigo's descent into madness. As they speak, Maruta successfully gnaws a small hole in the door. However, in the next second, thick smoke begins billowing into the room through the hole. Panic immediately sets in for everyone inside, but despite their desperate efforts, the door remains stubbornly shut. As the smoke in the room grows thicker, the older brother continues trying to break the door down with a piece of wood, while the younger brother repeatedly rams the door with his head, even as it starts to bleed. He refused to give up, for he was determined to eat cherry pie with everyone. Moved by his words, the elder brother embraced him heartbrokenly. However, at that very moment, an axe suddenly hacked through the wooden door and everyone stared agape in horror.
You may want to come and get it, Kazele. I'll see you at the credit card, Yakini. The wind is blowing, and it's not red. You can eat it all. Akiyama looked on with deep concern at the sight of the younger brother's bloodied head.
Ignoring his own injuries, the younger brother was more worried about Akiyama's disheveled state, considering he had barely any feathers left on him. However, Akiyama dismissed it, calmly calling it a mere scuffle with the police. Since the ground floor entrance was already engulfed in flames, Akiyama led them to a room on the 2nd floor. Despite the barbed wire below, a good run-up would allow them to clear it and jump safely onto the lawn. The brothers took the leap first. Immediately after, the master of the house jumped out while clutching the young girl, but when it was Maruta's turn, he froze in fear, having seen the master fall onto the barbed wire.
In the end, only Akiyama remained inside the burning room. He stared back into the flames for a long time, hesitating to make the jump.
Seeing this, the brothers couldn't help but cry out in desperation. Then in the next second, like a phoenix reborn from the ashes, Akiyama landed safely while cradling Aiji's Doberman. Just as they were about to celebrate their escape, Akiyama revealed that Aiji was still trapped in the room, clutching his motionless mother no matter how much he called out. Aiji refused to respond. Realizing Aiji intended to die there, the brothers rushed back toward the house. Suddenly, a familiar melody drifted out from within the building. It was the song Mrs. Ichijo often played for Aiji, and also a cherished memory for Migi. A beautiful memory from their childhood. That moment, Migi suddenly realized that Aiji was essentially himself, but without a brother's company, so he dashed back toward the house without looking back. Inside, Aiji was lying on the bed, and the sight of the ceiling reminded him of the past. As a child, his mother took him to the planetarium, but when he looked back, he found that his perfect mother actually had such a hidden, unknown side. He had also hoped to become a doctor like his father, to bring peace to his mother's heart. Unfortunately, in the end, this was the only way he could let her rest in peace. He hoped to remain the perfect son in her eyes until the very end.
A life flashback.
So that's my big brother.
Migi stated that he was there for revenge. He thought he hated Eiji because Eiji killed their mother, but it was actually because the two of them were so much alike. Eiji didn't listen to any of it. Instead, he urged Migi to pick up the kitchen knife and end his life. As they were talking, Dali also rushed over, unaware that his own backside was on fire, until Migi pointed it out. Dali's screams filled the room, though Eiji couldn't stand it, and told them to get out. Migi replied that his own plans had been messed up by his brother several times as well, so dying a poignantly beautiful death here was out of the question. He wanted Eiji to live on in disgrace. That would be his true revenge. With that, Migi grabbed Eiji and ran toward the door. But during the struggle, Migi accidentally tumbled down to the first floor. Immediately after an attempt to save them, Dali ended up falling down with Eiji as well. With the first floor engulfed in flames, the younger brother searched frantically for his brother. Suddenly, the living room chandelier crashed down, though it missed him. The falling debris from the ceiling nearly crushed him to death. The thick smoke blinded him completely. Just then, a beam of light appeared before his eyes. Thinking it was his mother coming for him, he was surprised to see it was McCann. As if sweeping away dust, McCann cleared the surrounding smoke, revealing his brother standing right in the center. Then Mikan pulled out a vacuum cleaner to suck away the smoke near the chandelier. The two discovered Eiji pinned beneath the fallen chandelier, risking severe burns to their backs. They lifted the chandelier together, and Eiji finally regained consciousness. He told them to leave him behind, but the brothers insisted on taking him home to eat cherry pie together. Hearing this, hope returned to Eiji's eyes once more. At that moment, a vision flashed before him, a blissful scene of everyone enjoying cherry pie together. Then the three brothers leaned on each other for support and made their way out of the room. Mikan vanished shortly after. Outside, a crowd of onlookers had gathered. Meanwhile, a woman's body was discovered inside the house. Akiyama and the others didn't spot the three of them. As the older brother felt it wasn't the right time to show themselves, the younger brother urged Eiji to go home with them first, insisting their kind adoptive parents would surely protect him. However, Eiji stood up and walked toward the crowd alone.
Forget it. I'd even dare to kick your mother.
Moscow song. Heizo, choose this girl. Love.
You got it. I told you got it. I told you. Ha, ha. No such a guy. I have rhinitis. My nose is so stuffed.
Itsuya Masano Zatsugai Zanba Oringa. Aye, master. Perhaps Migi and Dali are finally headed for a heartwarming finale. But the two brothers never could have imagined that their kind adoptive parents had long known Hitori was actually two people. They even went as far as preparing two separate Christmas gifts, marking the first time the four of them shared a meal as a complete family. 3 years later, Eiji is released from juvenile hall, regaining his freedom, though he is destined to live the rest of his life haunted by the guilt of his mother's death. He is fortunate never to be truly alone. As the annual Christmas season approaches, the atmosphere in the village feels unusually desolate this year. The reason being that their symbol of happiness has vanished, even though Eiji took full responsibility for all the crimes. The police didn't rely solely on his testimony, thanks to the unburned videotape found in Maruta's camera. Along with Mr. Ichido's desperate defense, Eiji's sentence was slightly reduced. However, it seems he will still be in juvenile hall for some time, which has indirectly forced Maruta and Karen into a long-distance relationship. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the Sonoyamas prepare a lavish dinner for Hitori, while also revealing to him that a special surprise awaits him on Christmas Day in 10 days. After the meal, Migi wants to perform their usual routine, a high-difficulty twin gymnastics performance with his brother. However, Dali keeps his back turned to him. It turns out the scars on Dali's face have made him resolve to never show himself again. Migi believes that the old couple would surely accept both of them, but Dali only wants them to focus all their love and affection on Migi alone. So Rachel, Daddy, no Jesus. Daddy, no. Migi was momentarily at a loss for words, but Daddy told him not to worry. From then on, he would act as his brother's shadow. Whenever the teacher asked a question, Dali would whisper the answer from outside the window, which Migi would then recite flawlessly. Even in pay class, Dali would hide inside the equipment in advance, giving his brother a perfect boost at just the right moment. Before long, Hitori achieved perfect scores in every subject and became the star student of the school. However, despite the praise from his classmates, Migi wasn't happy. Akiyama saw through the facade and asked why he hadn't seen Dali lately. Migi didn't try to hide the truth. He confessed everything to Akiyama and laid bare his true feelings. In truth, he no longer wanted to just be Hitori. He longed for a life where both Migi and Dali could truly exist. Hiding in the bushes, Dali overheard their entire conversation, but his resolve remained unchanged. He chose to continue playing his brother's shadow. However, a turning point soon arrived. It was Christmas Eve at the Tsunoyamas, and the family gathered together in a warm, joyous atmosphere. Laughter and cheer filled the entire house. Only Dali felt a pang of mixed emotions, and that night,
he had a nightmare. He dreamed he was hiding under the dinner table as usual, but unlike before, a strange woman's legs appeared beside him, and a baby's tiny feet kicked him, while his adoptive parents marveled at the joy of having a grandson. As time slipped away, Dali found himself all alone under the table. Waking with a start, he realized it was all just a dream. But as he climbed out of bed, he discovered 2 Christmas presents waiting in the room. At first, the younger brother thought the gift had somehow split in 2 on its own. Little did he know his adoptive parents had already discovered their secret.
I wondered why you were acting so strangely while reading your books. I realized you were both sharing the same clothes and the same life. Is in he doesn't need to hide away anymore. As the younger brother listened, tears began to flow uncontrollably down his face. He rushed to the closet, but his brother inside refused to open the door in this moment.
The younger brother decided to stop hiding the truth, choosing instead to speak his true feelings from the bottom of his heart.
After all, we've always been 2 parts of the same person. Please, don't shut me out of your life anymore, Dali. Let's face them together, brother. Even if things change, my happiness is only real when you are by my side. This is the sign we've been waiting for.
We can finally be who we truly are. And now, the old couple had prepared a sumptuous feast, their hearts heavy with a touch of bittersweet sadness. But the moment they saw the 2 brothers standing together, their faces were instantly filled with relieved and joyous smiles. This was the first time all 4 of them enjoyed a complete family dinner together. Noticing the older brother was still acting a bit stiff, the adoptive mother placed his favorite omoris right in front of him. The brother wondered how she knew, in fact, as early as Halloween. The couple had noticed that, while there were often many leftovers, omoris was the only dish that was always eaten clean.
There are no more secrets between us now. You'd have to hide in the shadows anymore. We will cherish both of you just as you are. Let's go, Daddy. Omo Domo boy. It's not Domo. You dummy, punch him.
Three years passed in the blink of an eye, and everyone's appearance had changed to some degree. The younger brother now resembled an artist, while the older brother looked like an erudite scholar. The only constant was the delicious cherry pie, and the pair's familiar lattice weaving technique. Booktooth and Akiyama expected to see a freak show, but little did they know, they were about to witness something even more supernatural. Words suddenly began appearing out of thin air on the floor, reminding the adoptive mother to preheat the oven. It turned out the spirit of the cleaning lady had become pen pals with the adoptive mother. Then the 2 brothers began to work together with their usual seamless coordination. With the cherry pie finished, the group gathered around the table. They seemed to be waiting for something. The atmosphere suddenly grew tense, and the younger brother leaned in to whisper a few words to his brother. Suddenly the doorbell rang, revealing the 3 members of the Ikijo family. Ig offered his apologies to everyone, and they warmly welcomed his arrival. But even so, Ig still felt a lingering sense of nervousness. Just then, a voice called out, and Dali appeared cross, dressed as a woman carrying the cherry pie. Ig couldn't help but burst into laughter, which successfully broke the ice. And so the whole group sat together, happily enjoying the fresh cherry pie with smiles lighting up every face. Before long, the 3 brothers visited their biological mother's grave to pay their respects. Ig closed his eyes and remained silent for a moment. He felt that his mother wasn't truly there, but perhaps he would finally see her again in the afterlife. It was a wretched and pathetic life, then EG turns around to ask Miji and Dali about their plans for the future. The brothers both express that they have one thing they want to prove. The scene shifts to the station where their adoptive mother is weeping uncontrollably as Dali is about to leave the village. To begin his studies, Maruta and Akiyama have also come to see him off.
That's only been 30 minutes. One day, you'll find your own connection. You can manage things on your own now.
Indeed, I want to listen to the stars. Even so, toward that sky, I have yet to see. So nice, no need for words. How nice it is